we're really building a future-proof integrated platform that will ultimately strengthen Trados as the backbone of the localization industry.
And welcome everyone to Slater Pod. Today we're really happy to have Mark Lawyer on the pod. So Mark's the general manager for Trados, the translation software product line of RWS, and of course still by far the most well-known translation tech tool in the world, I think. So hi, Mark.
Hey, good morning or good afternoon, Florian. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So always ask people where this podcast finds them. What country, what city are you in, Mark?
I am currently in New York, but I think my body clock is still somewhere over the Atlantic, Florian.
Catching up, right? Good. So you've had quite a long career in the language industry. So tell us a bit more, kind of give us a bit of the introduction, how you kind of came into this business and what have been kind of the milestones so far.
Yeah, so happy to. So I actually jumped into the localization space directly out of university. So I had actually found a localization startup through the Career Center. And I don't know if you've been in a startup before, but for anybody that has, job descriptions are not necessarily black and white. So I had to wear a lot of different hats in doing that, but it was a lot of fun and it was really a good learning experience and, kind of introduced me to the localization industry at whole. I had no idea it even existed prior. And while working there, I really got into technology, into automation early on. And if you remember a company called Idiom Technologies, I worked very closely with the teams at Idiom. And, that really piqued my curiosity quite a bit. So I was actually going to move to Idiom circa 2008. And that was at the time that Idiom was acquired by SDL. So long story short, had joined SDL at that point and, held a number of different roles within SDL. So I started in business development role out on the West Coast, relocated to Mountain View. So basically lived pretty much on Google campus, Florian, and worked with a number of technology companies up and down the West Coast. So I had some great experience there. Then I sort of moved around within the company. So I moved into more of a solution architecture role, then a consulting role. And we got into global customer experience management. So started to expand my technology understanding and know-how into content management, into social analytics, that sort of thing. And then kind of from there moved into a management role. And up until earlier this year, really had overseen all of the commercial teams within RWS here in North America prior to taking on the general manager role for Trados.
So right now, general manager Trados globally.
Globally, yes. That's why I'm somewhere over the Atlantic right now.
Trados is a long history. I mean, I remember, my translator days. I obviously was a power user of Trados. I imagine there's going to be some nice kind of anecdotes over the past 3 decades. Can you just share some of them? Maybe some of them that you personally can remember, but also from kind of maybe a little way back.
Yeah. So let's maybe start at the beginning. I mean, I've going back with Trados. I mean, so Trados actually started in 1984. So it's kind of it's like the it's like the localization industry in a way, right? It's ever changing and it's been around for a while. And a little piece of trivia for you. So Trados, actually, when it was created, it stands for translation and documentation software, and German engineered from the beginning, right? And if you fast forward about a decade into Trados, that's when Trados came out with the Translator's Workbench and terminology solution, closely followed by their server products. Fast forward to 2008, and that Workbench was totally reinvented into the Studio family of products. All the way up till 19, we basically reinvented Trados Enterprise in 2019, and then 2020, RWS has really doubled down on Trados, and hopefully we can talk a little bit about that today. But really, from 1984 to current day, Trados has come a long way. We're in 220 countries and territories around the globe, and really have become the de facto and kind of a household name in the localization space.
So where are we now in terms of the offering? I mean, I've taken some notes. So we got enterprise, studio, and team. Is that accurate? And can you kind of describe the differences, or just kind of give us the lay of the land here about the current offering that's currently on the market, basically?
Not a problem. So I think first, just to kind of set context there, Florian, from our perspective, we kind of serve three distinct market segments. And those three segments kind of make up the localization supply chain, if you will. And we look at that as the individual translators. We also look at the LSP market, and we look at the corporate and government market as well. And by the numbers, we have over 270,000 individual translator licenses in circulation today. We've got 4,000 plus LSP customers, and we've got around about 8,000 corporate customers. So, when we look at our offerings and try and unpack that, the easiest thing to do is to go to rws.com/Trados. There's a nice simple matrix that really breaks that down. And like you're describing, you mentioned Studio, you mentioned Teams, Enterprise. You'll see four offerings on the site there. So the first is Studio, and that is for individual translators, comes with essential cloud capabilities. So you've got desktop and cloud with Studio. There's a second offering called Trados Team, and this is really for translators that want to collaborate. So this is popular with our LSP customers, as well as internal translation teams within a company or within a government organization. Next step up is Trados Accelerate. And Trados Accelerate is essentially a prepackaged TMS. It comes with a certain number of users, certain number of workflows, integrations, et cetera. And that's for companies that really want to get to market quickly. And then there is Trados Enterprise. And this is exactly what it sounds like. I mean, some of the largest, most complex global organizations on the planet are using Trados Enterprise today. And the cool thing about this is all those offerings are basically developed on the same platform. So it's very easy to move up and down or to interact with anybody that's on that platform. So if an LSP wants to interact with a translator or a corporation with an LSP, we're trying to make it easier and easier for them to interact there. Now, in terms of the adoption too, I mentioned RWS really kind of doubled down on Trados in 2020. In 2019, Trados Enterprise was basically marketed and brought to market for the first time. And we've seen some really good cloud adoption. So we've had high triple-digit growth on the cloud platform year over year. And I think, the last thing to mention here in terms of unpacking that, I haven't mentioned anything about some of our other products as well. So we still develop products like World Server, like Group Share. There's still a very big customer base there, and people have needs for on-premise still as well. So, those are also available through RWS.
There's so much complexity here. So let me touch on 2 points. The first one, that gradual shift, I guess, from the desktop app to the cloud, from license kind of, perpetual to a SaaS model. Like, how are you managing this? What are some of the key challenges, and where do you see this going in like the next 5 years? Like, will it still be a mix, or will it be all SaaS, software as a service, or how do you see that transition?
I don't know about you, but I like options. I like flexibility in terms of how I work and interact with different products. I mean, not just translation products, but all types of products and services. So I mean, that's kind of our approach, Florian. Is we're giving our we're giving our customers options and flexibility. And as I mentioned, like we've got, kind of those three core segments we look at: the translators, the LSPs, and the corporates and government entities. And we just put out our annual TTI survey, and this is basically surveying our users. And if you look at individual translators, they really a lot of them still like to work in the desktop environment. They're comfortable with it. They have a lot of efficiencies there. That's how they're used to working. So for something like that, what we're doing to kind of make the transition into cloud first is, like I said, we're providing cloud capabilities with that desktop product, for example. So that's free and that's available to those linguists to start trying at their speed, when they're ready to. We've also spent an awful lot of time enhancing the online editor. I mean, we've done I want to say 400 plus enhancements to that editor over the last year and a half or so, because they want that experience that they're used to on the desktop. They want that familiarity. So we are providing both desktop and cloud and that hybrid working environment for the translators themselves. It's a little bit different when you get to the corporations and the LSPs. I mean, they're a little bit more. They are going the cloud route almost naturally, and the biggest challenge here is change itself, in terms of moving to cloud. But when we get new customers, new prospects coming to us, Florian, 99 out of 100 corporate prospects are saying we want a cloud first solution in the first place. Like they already realize the benefits of cloud, and whether it's translation technology or it's any other type of technology, I don't think cloud is really a new thing. And the benefits are pretty well understood by most corporations.
Yeah, and I mean, there's certain apps now that we're using here at Slater that are like completely mirrored. Like, for example, we're using a productivity tool called Asana, which most of our staff would use in the cloud, but there's actually like a Mac desktop app, which is like copy paste the exact same thing. So for some people that just like to work in the app, it kind of works as well. So maybe there's some flexibility there. So you're saying you're seeing just a lot of preference still from the huge, you said 270,000 linguists and translators that like to work in the desktop because that's, how they've done it for years and they like that experience. But like new customers, for example, on the enterprise side, they would typically onboard in a cloud environment.
Yeah, that's right. And like when you break down that supply chain, Florian, it's interesting because the LSPs and the corporations, they want detail around all the metrics. How much time is it taking to translate a segment, for example, and that type of deep integration and connection is what we have within the Trados platform. So we've kind of got the best of both worlds, right? We've got the ability for those translators to work in a desktop environment if that's what they prefer, but we're still getting that rich data and pulling that back in for the LSPs and for the corporations.
Let's talk about kind of the CAC component, and it's very feature rich. Trados, of course. Like, can you tell us just the top 2-3 kind of features that you launched recently? Maybe something you think really helps the linguist with productivity, or any other features that you're excited about.
I would broaden it out too. I mean, Trados really is a platform, Florian, and we're releasing up to 10 features a day, hundreds per year. I mean, truly agile, born in the cloud platform. And I almost think about like kind of what have we done in past, what are we doing right now, and what are we going to do is kind of how that stacks up in my mind. And if I think about what we've done in the past, like we've taken we have a number of language technology products, right? A number of translation management systems that are in the market, very mature products right now. And we know based on our on our users and our expertise that, a visual workflow editor is best in class. So my point is we've taken a lot of the best in class features from products that we have and industry and customer input and actually developed those in our cloud platform. So some of the things that we're coming out with right now, we've just come out with a really nice new AEM preview capability. A lot of great feedback from customers who have, kind of used other AEM integrations. It's kind of stacking up very well. Currently, it's pretty sophisticated in terms of the way that it works.
For those listeners that may not be familiar, AEM is Adobe Experience Manager, I guess, right?
That is correct. And then in the future, on the platform, Florian, for example, we've got a patent pending right now to enhance some of the smart routing capabilities that we've got within the platform. We're looking into our ecosystem, building out our ecosystem around the Trados platform. Content, as you well know, is always changing. So, there's a lot of trending now and over the past year or two in terms of multimedia. We've got some capabilities in the platform there, but we've also got a good partnership with a company called Caption Hub that you might be familiar with that really has some nice capabilities around subtitling, for example. So, as we look to the future, we're really building a future-proof integrated platform that will ultimately strengthen Trados as the backbone of the localization industry.
Let's talk about, we try to refer to it now as expert in the loop as opposed to like human in the loop, because MT is getting so good that you need to be an expert, in my view, to add value to it. What are your thoughts around integrating? What are you doing at Trados? And like, you have a very powerful internal property with Language Weaver. So how do you fit all these pieces together to really make sure that the linguists have a great experience with, it's becoming increasingly like almost a multilingual proofreading activity, but it should be a bit more interactive. So how do you, integrate that as best as possible?
First off, the user experience and accessibility really are critical to us and our customers, right? So when you think about it from that perspective, we've got multiple configurations that are available to you as a user based on your role. So when you talk about post editing MT, if you're a post editor, you're only going to see features that really are relevant to what you are doing within your role. So, for example, as a post editor, you may find track changes feature within Trados is valuable to you. You might find that fuzzy match repair is valuable to you. It might make you faster, more efficient. So, for example, like fuzzy match repair is something we had brought to market a couple of years ago, where you're essentially, looking at that fuzzy match and you're improving that with either MT or terminology or, kind of a fragment within a translation unit within a translation memory. So these are all things, that are basically squeezing more juice out of the orange, if I can use that analogy. Other examples there, Florian, if you look at, you can look at our app store as well. I've got a lot of apps in the RWS App Store to extend functionality. So specifically for post editing MT, there's an app called MT Comparison that allows you very easily to compare different MT outputs, because we find many organizations use multiple machine translation engines depending on language combination, depending on content type. And this really allows you to understand which one applies best, which will require the least amount of post editing. There's also another cool one that's called the TTS app, or text to speech app, where you literally with a pedal with your feet control the verbal. Basically, it will read the source to you while you're looking at and using both hands to edit the MT output on the other side. So it's like it's a little physical efficiency as well. So there's all sorts of things that we're doing. I mean, these are just a couple of examples, but if you do this with the user base that we have, I mean, these are the types of things that you come out of it with, because they really are making people more productive in the process.
How much of like the current, I don't know, giant volume flow going through all the Trados products would be related to post editing workflows these days? Like, could you give a ballpark estimate there? Or is that super hard?
I mean, I don't have any hard numbers in front of me, but it's a lot, Florian. I mean, if I had to say off the top of my head, I would think, 75 to 80%.
Wow.
I mean, it's very high. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we at Slaty, we have that thesis now where basically we're on that plateau of productivity. If you look at this Gartner kind of hype chart, right? Starting in 2016 with the Google MT launch, and then like just lots of adoption. And if a company like yours with those giant volumes says we're at 70-80%, so basically we have reached almost a plateau, and what's left is probably not super suitable for a post-editing workflow in the first place, because otherwise it probably would have transitioned by now.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. It's like, just to go back to the analogy of squeezing the little extra juice out of the orange that's left. It's like looking at all the different content types, and can you actually get productivity from incorporating machine translation into that workflow? So lots of different content types have been explored, and it's pretty ubiquitous.
Are there some that you could point to that are super hard and that maybe will take another couple of years, or maybe I hate to say never, but like in the transcreation space, or maybe game lock or certain media properties, or where would you see kind of the resistant pockets to post editing?
Yeah, I mean, the obvious one really is the highly creative content, Florian. I mean, that's been tough, just because of the process that we go through, right? Or that LSPs go through, for example, if they're providing transcreation as a service. I mean, it's a creative process. I mean, we're not really talking about leveraging translation memory, for example, as opposed to reading a creative brief and understanding what concept you're trying to drive home within different markets. So yeah, I mean, transcreation is one that comes top of mind for a lot of the marketing and the creative content. The other, might be more of the theatrical. Like if you think about movies, right? They're creative in nature to a degree as well. So they might be another one that's a little bit tougher, but I think that can be cracked as well.
Another topic, you mentioned the really fast pace of feature release. Like, how do you manage kind of this feature overload versus maybe a clean UI experience that may lack some of the features that others want? Like, I'm speaking to a lot of linguists, and opinions are completely all over the place. Like, some like it super clean, others like to have literally every feature somewhere on the screen. Like, how do you manage that at scale with so many, like 270 installs, 270K installs?
Great question. And I hear you in terms of a lot of opinions. So, we do have 270,000 plus linguists using Trados. I mean, we've got 4,000 LSPs, as I mentioned, 8,000 corporate customers. So we do get a lot of opinions, but I mean, that is critical to developing and maintaining something that is best in class for each of those personas using the platform. So, all of these folks are critical. Their input is critical to us. And really what we're trying to do is strike the right balance of coming up with kind of a comprehensive environment with the right functionality, but without kind of overwhelming those users. And, when I think about the Trados platform, we went through extensive UI and UX design and validation before anything was ever coded. So, as I've kind of alluded to, we have persona-based kind of views within the platform. So you're only seeing what's relevant to you. If you're a project manager versus a linguist versus a reviewer, you're on the platform for different reasons, and probably don't need things that aren't relevant to you, right? Um, Another example of that is like our customer portal UI. It's really simplified to require only needed information to submit projects. Um, I'll go back to the AEM example. You know, if we're doing our job properly, a lot of content creators will work in a system like AEM or Marketo, for example. If they never have to leave that and can get their content localized, that's a good experience for them. I mean, there's lots of different systems within enterprise right now, and the less you need to know, the more integrated it is. That's a better experience for those folks. So I'm just thinking of some other examples here. Project managers, they really like the fact that there's a heat map within the Trados platform. So they can really see if, hey, here are my projects that are at risk, but really what that feature allows them to do is focus in on higher value tasks as project managers. And then from the translator's perspective as well, the translators, they don't like to upload and download things. So, we've taken that into account, for example, and done a very deep integration so that their work just kind of shows up in their environment when they're ready to work. So, and we will continue to take on all those opinions, Florian, because really, it highlights some of the real challenges that people are having in general and certainly on the platform. But that's really what drives innovation for us.
Now let's talk a bit about some of the big tech companies that are coming in, maybe a little bit and going more downstream. One of them very prominent and recently is your friends over at Google in Mountain View, who launched their translation hub, which I'm still trying to wrap my head around, and I'm going to speak about it in our conference this week. So generally, what are your thoughts about big tech starting to offer these types of more, niche-y enterprise products, not kind of just the foundational layers in machine translation? And like, how deep can they go? Do you see them as competitor or complementary, or just generally, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I got this question a bit over the last couple of weeks, and I'm sure you have as well. I saw a write up from you a couple of weeks ago on this, but I mean, overall, I think this is, it's good for the industry. We're still very fragmented as an industry, and I think somebody like Google with the translation hub idea can bring just bring some awareness to the industry. And then in terms of, is this a competitor? I mean, I speak with a lot of our LSPs and a lot of our corporate customers, and I don't think so. There's a lot of complexity that the LSPs are handling, and there's a lot of complexity that big tech companies themselves have, right? So, I mean, overall, I see it as a positive for us.
So it's kind of like a starter pack still, right? So if you have a relatively low level, not super complex workflow, okay, maybe it'll work, but then you have to graduate quite quickly once your requirements kind of grow.
Yeah, and graduate to what?
Graduate to you or to Trados. Let's talk a bit about future. What's general industry trends you're seeing, and then maybe what's on your kind of product roadmap for the next 12, 18 months? Anything you're really excited about?
Yeah, so in terms of trends, let me start there, Florian. I think the first that we're already seeing, we've kind of talked about it a little bit, is moving to cloud and ways of working in the cloud. You know, Again, if I think about our corporate and our LSP segments, right, they want something that's easy to buy, deploy, maintain, integrate. I mean, those are all traits of cloud. And for the actual translators, it's really a hybrid way of working. So we definitely see that trend continuing. Another one is continuous localization. So what I mean by that is we're seeing smaller increments of content, different types of content coming in at different times, shorter turnaround times for those pieces of content, staggered deliveries of those pieces of content by different language. And I mean, this is really, this really kind of started within, I would say, software product companies. But in general, even the more traditional companies, like if you think about like Ford or GM out of Detroit, they are basically becoming software on wheels, like Tesla did years ago. And I think that's pervasive across more than just automotive. Every company now has some sort of technology like as part of their offering, and it's really going to become a trend, broader than just the software product companies. So I see a lot more continuous localization happening over the next couple of years. And then one that's right in front of us as well, Florian, is talking with a lot of our corporate customers. There's kind of this looming recession that's coming. So what happens when recessions come? A lot of consolidation. So I think not only within the corporate world will we see consolidation, but I think our industry itself will see some consolidation. I think there'll be more M&A, and certainly looking forward to seeing how that pans out.
Yeah, let's see. I think there might be a few kind of overextended startups that will be picked up by some of the more, established and profitable players, I guess, in that space.
Hey, so not a shameless plug, but I mean we have a very active M&A program, right? Very very cash positive at RWS, and honestly, it's really interesting to look out at and kind of see what the marketplace looks like right now and what it'll look like a year from now.
Send your deck to Mark Lawyer.
That's right. That's my plug. Now, and then you also asked about roadmap for kind of looking at this year and beyond. So, as you probably know, I don't know if others know, but RWS earlier this year, we kind of announced the fact that we're taking 100 million pounds and pumping that back into the business over the next 5 years. And a nice chunk of that is going towards Trados, right? And we're investing that in innovation for those 3 market segments that I outlined. And really, our key themes there, Florian, are security, AI-driven features, keep focusing on a modern user experience, modern ways of working like continuous localization that I mentioned, and then building out that ecosystem. And I think if we do that, we will really address the fragmentation that we see in the industry, just continually making it easier for everybody in that supply chain to work on the platform, to work with each other across the platform. And that should open up opportunity, whether you're more opportunity, I should say, whether you're an LSP, whether you're a corporation looking for an LSP, whether you're a translator looking to connect with LSPs. We're trying to make it easier to do that within the Trados platform. And we'll have some exciting announcements coming out in the new year around that as well.
Well, stay tuned. So $100 million investment, even if only a part of this flows to Trados, I'm sure users will be excited about it.
Yeah, indeed. We hope so. We are.
Awesome. So we're staying tuned for the announcements to come. And thank you so much, Mark, for joining SlaterPod today. This was super interesting.
All right. Thanks, Florian.